he's owed $19.4 million, I believe, next year. They get rid of him. The NFL, they get that money back. They can invest it in a couple of other areas that they may be lacking. Look, if you want to do something, look, I think Kyle Long, he's not exactly, he's not the best quarterback in the NFL, and he's already drawn like 21 sacks this year. If you really want to do something and assure that he can be that guy moving forward, get rid of Cam, you get that $19.4 million back. Why don't you invest it in maybe someone on the offensive line in free agency come the offseason? I think Cam Newton is too much of a prima donna. I mean, they're focused more on his, post-game outfits than his play on the field, which hasn't been stellar the last couple of seasons. Ever since they didn't win that Super Bowl after he won the MVP. We saw with Matt Ryan, though Matt Ryan has still been fairly competent at his respective position. They just those MVPs tend to fall off. Obviously, Brady's an exception, but yeah, I think it's time to move on from Cam. He's been there over a decade. He's done good things for them. He's taken them to playoff games, but he's also been injury prone. And I just think, they should just ride out Kyle Long as they go on.
Well, they probably will. I think they probably will. He's a very expensive backup.
Because we mentioned this earlier. I said how Derek Carr and Stafford improved as they got more experience in the league and more reps. I think you could see that with Kyle Long because he's shown, obviously he's not great on his legs the way we see Lamar Jackson and a couple of other guys, Baker Mayfield, et cetera, et cetera. But, he has room to grow. He's not perfect, but he's also not bad. I think he's just the guy that they need. He's not a distraction the way that Cam Newton is, and I think that's really all they want, him and Ron Rivera. So,
well, again, the Panthers have a situation that right now they're putting him on IR because he's not healthy. Mm-hmm. What the ownership, albeit new ownership, has to say compared to Jerry Richardson, who's the guy who brought him in, it'll be one of those business decisions they'll make at the appropriate time. I mean, right now, Cam has to heal before he gets paid anywhere, and we also need to see a full season with Long before anybody can make that decision as well. So there's a lot of football to go. What are we, week 9 right now?
Oh, week 10. We're starting week 10 this week.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, week 10, whatever. We're in week 10. There's a lot of football to be played. So, all right. So you
certainly.
So let's see what else. Where do you want to go? You want to talk about the Chargers?
I will finish off with the Chargers, but one more thing I wanted to ask you guys. Obviously, both you're based down in Florida. I had to ask this. So the Dolphins, they waived former first-round pick Robert and Nkemdiche today. He played in just 2 games, so it's not a big loss for the team. Now, obviously, they had Fitzpatrick over the weekend for their first win. I've got to ask, how bad does this Josh Rosen trade look down in Florida right now? Because to me, it was appalling. This was an enormous waste of time from their point of time.
Yeah, you're right. The Josh Rosen trade, everybody would have thought that he would have been playing by now, but apparently the Dolphins tried to avoid the old 0-16 club, and that's the one thing that they don't want, knowing they're the only undefeated Super Bowl winning champion around. So to avoid that winless distinction, knowing that they were undefeated was something I think that meant a lot to the franchise. And it clearly indicated the team wasn't intending to tank after all. They want their young players to learn hard lessons. Once upon a time, Troy Aikman, I think, finished 1-15. So 1-15 isn't the worst thing in the world as long as it leads to something. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I'll give you that, Anthony. The Josh Rosen trade was unquestionably a waste.
It just shows a lack of direction. I mean, you give Flores a 5-year deal, and that I feel like a couple of those years were packed on particularly because of what system he came from in New England, and he knew the division. But again, the Rosen trade made absolutely no sense. And you know what? If the Bengals continue to lose, we may not even have the number 1 overall pick. So what are we going to do?
Not. I have a feeling Tua could be taking a ride up by 75.
But at this point, too, he may even be damaged goods. We've seen the injuries. Right. So you know what? Like Miami may have to just continue to work with Rosen as they move on. Again, we've seen some quarterbacks improve on first and second year performance. Can that be done with Rosen? I don't know, because whenever I watch him play, I just don't see somebody who knows the NFL well enough. Doesn't know how to read defenses the way that guys who elevate themselves do. And I mean, look, will I hope so as a Dolphins fan? Absolutely, but I'm not going to talk about him in any light of Deshaun Watson or some of the upper echelon guys.
Well, the thing about Rosen is you still could be potentially looking at a backup quarterback for next year to make sure that they don't get totally hosed in that trade.
And they have another year of Fitzpatrick as well.
Well, that's true, but they'll probably draft a quarterback. You don't have to get him in the first round, so I'll be curious.
But what I think is interesting moving into next year, though, is that obviously, we've mentioned Cam Newton might be on the move. I mean, you talked about the Bengals. They're sort of tanking this year. So what's going to happen with Dalton this year as well, and then does Josh Rosen move on as well? Those are three sort of relatively big name QBs that could all be on the move this offseason, as well as look at the Titans. I can see them bringing in another QB as well. This is going to be a big draft for QBs and a big free agency for QBs.
Yeah, well, Dalton's going to land in a much better situation. I know that, and I think there's a lot of good football left in the Redhead from Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Red Rifles, they like to refer to him.
Yeah, I like the upside for Andy Dalton. Okay, so let's talk about the Chargers, and obviously we'll talk about, you only have about 5 minutes about your moving on. So go ahead, get to the Chargers, and then we'll talk about, got 2 minutes for you.
So, of course, how could I close out with anything other than a London story? Yes, the LA Chargers, as they are for the moment at least, they could well be the first team to move to London on a full-term basis, according to a report from The Athletic. Now, the situation is obviously, as we know, the Chargers have not been able to fill up their stadium, even though it is by far the smallest in the league. Their attendance figures have been mediocre, to say the best. Every game there has turned into somewhat of a home game for the away team lately. It's been absolutely appalling since they moved. I mean, we knew this move was somewhat doomed from the start because they were going into a market that was already pretty much taken by the Rams, but this has been appallingly bad so far. So the Chargers, apparently they have approached league, they've spoken to league personnel about a possible move to London, or they've discussed it to some extent. The Chargers would at least listen if the NFL approached them about London as a genuine option, as a possible option. And that for me, I mean, at this point in time, there aren't many other markets that are certainly that are as big as this than London. If you can, yes, they could go to St. Louis or somewhere like that, but London, I mean, they would easily fill the stadium there every week, at least for the first year or two, I can imagine easily. And the stadium is there, it's all ready. Right. They could use Tottenham Stadium, it's ready to go. Wembley Stadium is ready to go, or even the Olympic Stadium. They're all there. All the stuff is there. I mean, the NFL Academy is there. There's players coming through the system. I mean, right. It's ready to go. The fan base is there. The knowledge is there. The support is there. So while I'm not saying it's by any means for sure going to happen, it's certainly possible at this point in time because they need to move. The LA is not the answer for the Chargers, and I can't see them crawling back to San Diego at this point in time. So where else are they going to go?
Well, believe it or not,
that hasn't got this ready.
Believe it or not, I think that San Diego is more of a realistic option if they get the stadium straight. I really do. I don't see London because of the travel logistics, but that's good to hear that.
You'd have to rename the league to the GFL, maybe the Global Football League, not the National Football League.
Well, also they'd have to they wouldn't stay in the West either. They'd have to move the leagues around a bit, the divisions around a bit as well. So there's a lot involved in it. But the fact, I mean, we know how dead set the NFL is on having a big claim in the British market. We know that they want to be in Europe. They want to spread the game out. So I certainly wouldn't write it off. It's by no means a sure thing, and I think at this point in time, it really could go either way, and it may well stay. They will all stay in the States, but I think this is the best chance British fans have at this point in time of getting a team to the UK is the Chargers.
I'll tell you what. I'll leave it at this. Okay, when you get acclimated to your schedule, we'll do a special edition of the Sports Exchange, and you can talk about the NFL in London. How's that?
Sounds fantastic. I can always talk about NFL in the UK.
We'll devote an entire show to that. But meanwhile, we got like 1 or 2 minutes to go. Well, all I can tell you, we've enjoyed having you on the Sports Exchange, initially with Peter Wien and now under our new home here on South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. You've been very loyal to us and through some of the things that we've gone, so we can't thank you enough for everything you've done. So anything you want to say as you wrap up your time with us on a regular basis? We hope you'll do some down the road for us, but on a when you get a chance.
Absolutely, I certainly will. I'll still be around at some point, but yes, obviously, thank you to Peter and Louis and Sammy and everyone else we've spoken to along the way, Candy as well, and of course, thank you to yourself, Scott. You put a lot of faith in me, and I really appreciate your support over the last. Well, it's been almost a year at this point in time. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to sort of rekindling this at some point soon and carrying on with it, because who doesn't love talking sports? Let's be honest. It's a lot of fun, and we're very lucky to be doing what we do.
Well, what we'll do down the road is, I think, in an effort to keep the relationship going, we'll just try to come up with some special episodes that you can get on, just so that everybody knows that nobody will ever forget about UK. You've been a big, you've been great for us, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. So, I can be out there to give you a recommendation, I'll be more than happy to do that. You know that. And I wrote that one story on you as well. With a lot of you
Yes, I remember.
So you can always print it out if you got a good printer. But meanwhile, no, it's been great having you on, and we look forward to doing projects with you down the road for sure, Anthony, as long as you're open to the idea.
Most certainly. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll do an episode. We'll make a commitment. We'll commit the time that we can do the NFL in London, give you the floor to run with it. So let's monitor.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember a while back we discussed possibly the draft in London, so I'll throw that in there as well.
Right. But meanwhile, on that note, Anthony, thank you for being on the Sports Exchange, and we'll definitely stay in touch, okay? Thank you for everything.
Looking forward to it. Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Much respect, Anthony. Take care. Be safe. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
So what are your thoughts about what do you have to say about the NFL? And
look, I like this idea of getting, major American sports in other countries. Obviously, soccer's been the sport globally that's done it the best. But realistically, though, if you really want to, and this would be kind of an interesting dynamic, and let me know what you think about it. If you really want to establish NFL, or at least football, American football, in the UK on a regular basis, which I'm sure is already done, I don't have anything in front of me that says that, but why not create a league, of players like the XFL, where you can kind of have guys just go over there and play. And you know what? Like, obviously the talent level isn't going to be to the degree of, what we see in our current NFL and maybe even college, but this can almost be like what they do in Japan, where baseball players play in Japan. Some go over there in Korea, and then they just come back to the NFL or the MLB, respectively.
Yeah. Well, let me just preface by saying this, okay? They had the World League of American Football many years ago, the NFL, and the owners, because it was too expensive to run, they decided not to do it. Hear me out, okay? They had it out there a long time, and the NFL owners, with all their billions of dollars, were looking to develop a feeder system. And the idea, I think, was great. Unfortunately, the cost, the economics, to me, were just impossible to continue doing it long term.
Which tells us that some ideas are better on paper than actually being executed.
Right.
Yeah, so, are we going to continue to do these London games? I hope so. I think the brevity of the fact that you only get maybe 3 or 4 games a year.
But that's okay.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right. They'll continue doing this. You don't have to
which is great. And which leads me to believe that too much of one thing gets a little tiring for somebody.
Right.
So maybe they may get too exposed to American football, and they're just like, we don't want 16 games of that a year, and they may shy away from
about that. You know what? That's why the NFL hasn't moved so swiftly on it either, because they're trying to gauge what they can do. Anthony alluded to it moments ago. He said, to be able to have a team out there, you'd have to play 8 games in a row, and then they'd have to have a place. Offices here in the United States, and it's another story. But with that said, okay, we have David Levin on the phone, and hey, David, what's going on in Jacksonville?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me back. A whole lot of nothing tonight. Well, actually, a lot of things going on in Jacksonville tonight. Let's see. Jaguars technically have a new quarterback who was the old quarterback who was replaced by the new quarterback who is now the old quarterback.
Lead singer's back.
Well,
pretty much, yeah.
Let's start out about us eating crow before we go to Foles, okay? Since you haven't done this all year, I liked what you wrote on your Facebook. Here you go. Florida 24, Georgia 23, FSU 31, Miami 27. FSU loses the coach, okay, and the game.
Okay, in my defense, the 27 points for was it Florida State? That was the winning score.
Oh, look at this guy!
I got the wrong. I got and the 24 was what Georgia did score. So technically, I got the points right. I got the teams wrong.
I'll give you your due there. Okay, that's okay. He's 0 for 2 in the game, but if you're going to give me that line, you might as well go over to the party store, or as we call them in Detroit, and buy lottery tickets, and then Candy and I dinner out there because I gave you the idea in the first place.
You know what? I could do that. I might just do that.
You got great numbers. It's just you're 0 for 2 in the prediction department, but yeah, you did nail the 27 score, and you did get the 24 right. So all right, I'll give you that. Okay.
Okay.
We're
and by the way, just so you know, when you told me you were going to rag on me, I had to think about something quick and witty. I just came up with that on the fly. Anyway.
Well, that's what you call quick thinking, buddy. That's why you're on the air all the time nowadays. Okay? I mean, so you can deal with me on a regular basis while I challenge the living daylights out of you. And you're handling it well, though.